Possible change at the top in Israel. After holding a record long term as Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu could be spending his last few days in office. Naftali Bennett is poised to be Israel's next leader. That's if a vote goes his way on Sunday. So let's discuss what this means for the country and the volatile standoff with the Palestinians. Saleh Hijazi is Deputy Regional Director for Amnesty International. Saleh, very good morning. Good evening. I've been so used to working on the morning shows. A very good evening to you, Saleh. How is this likely to play out on Sunday? What's going to happen?
Well, look, I mean, from Amnesty's perspective, we look at the human rights implications of changes in the political system. And unfortunately, what we have here in Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories is that the problem is structural. Palestinians face institutionalized discrimination and systematic oppression. This violates, various human rights on a daily basis. Basic rights like freedom of movement, freedom to work, freedom to reach your school, get education. These are systematic violations that are faced on a daily basis. The government that is coming is not likely to change this. What is needed, and the questions that Nambi has, is whether a new government will end the institutionalized discrimination and systematic oppression. Will they stop illegal settlements and remove settlers from the occupied territories? Will they end the illegal blockade imposed on Gaza and end the collective punishment of the 2 million people who are stuck in what was called the biggest open-air prison in the world? Will they allow Palestinian refugees who have been displaced from their homes in 1948 and are right now living around the country in Lebanon, Jordan, and elsewhere, return and be able to enjoy their right to return according to international law? Will they scrap discriminatory laws that make Palestinian citizens of Israel a second or third-class citizen within the country? Will they end the impunity for crimes under international law? The likely answer is no. Bennett is on the right of Netanyahu. The government is not addressing at all the Palestinian issue or the human rights violations that are faced by Palestinians. And as we speak now, I mean, there is still an ongoing, very violent, repressive campaign against Palestinians in occupied East Jerusalem and inside of Israel in what is called the mixed cities, repressing Palestinians who dare to stand up to the repression. There are no indications that this is going to change, unfortunately.
What about the conversations with Arab parties? I mean, I know that the Palestinians feel that there's been a bit of a sellout on their behalf, but the fact that they are being approached or to enter some sort of coalition, could it make any difference?
Well, look, the question to here ask is, yes, indeed, there are Palestinians who do participate in parliamentary elections. They get elected into parliamentary positions, but there's a limit to that. We put out a report in 2019 looking at human rights violations faced by Palestinian members of the Israeli Knesset, how rules within the parliament it stops them from enjoying their freedom of expression, particularly when it comes to questioning the identity of the state as both Jewish and democratic. There is no one allowed, and specifically Palestinian members of the parliament, they are not allowed to bring any motion that would even question that identity of the state. So that tells you how much freedom they have in terms of basically joining in the power. And look, until now, we hear also members of the Knesset from what is called the Joint List criticize Israeli policies towards Palestinians. I was just hearing a member of the parliament, Sami Abu Shhadeh of Yafa, calling the situation there apartheid. This is a Palestinian member of the Knesset. So there are mixed views when it comes to the Palestinian citizens of Israel, but indeed there is a big limit, a very big red line to what they are able and not able to do.
I mean, you wonder what it's going to take to change that, because for many of the politicians, it is handy, it's useful. I mean, Netanyahu often used the violence to get away from his own problems at home, and the fact that he's, facing corruption charges. What is it that the Palestinians can do now after the elections? Do they have any leverage at all with the new government to get some sort of peace process underway, finally?
Well, look, what we've seen over the past couple of months since the escalation of the situation here is that Palestinians, and this is in a way unprecedented, that Palestinians across Israel and the occupied territories rose up to protest against the discrimination and against the oppression that they face on a daily basis. I think this is something very positive, despite the very violent repression that they're facing. What we saw Palestinians do is say that the fragmentation that Israel has been trying to impose on them for over 73 years, since the establishment of the state, has not worked. That they are still one group across the Green Line, and they will still take action, including peaceful protests, including in writing, like in the case of Sheikh Jarrah, for example, against another wave of forced displacement. And they will continue to do that until they're granted their rights. I think this is something very positive that came out of the recent crisis.
I appreciate your time.